Welcome to the Tottori Sand Dunes. My name is Dai Nagamatsu from Tottori University. I'm studying the vegetation of the Tottori Sand Dunes and its management. In the background is 47-meter high dune Umanose, means horseback, with the Umanose facing the sea as its symbol. The Tottori Sand Dunes are known as the most famous coastal dunes in Japan. I will now introduce the Tottori Sand Dunes from various perspectives, which attract many tourists.
Currently, a portion of Tottori Sand Dunes is utilized for agricultural purposes, while some portions are untouched and preserved as coastal sand dunes. Let's unfold the nature and human activities in the Tottori Sand Dunes. The Tottori Sand Dunes are located in Tottori City in the eastern Chugoku region. It is a coastal dune facing the Sea of Japan and is 16 kilometers wide from east to west and 2.4 kilometers wide from north to south, making it the largest sand dune in Japan as a popular tourist destination. Originally, it covered an area of over 1,300 hectares, and 160 hectares remain as sand dunes today. In 1955, it was designated as a National Natural Monument. It is also designated as a Special Protection Area of Sannin Kaigan National Park, and its nature is highly valued. The unique topography of the dunes has been selected as one of the top 100 geological features in Japan, and it is also a geosite of the Sannin Kaigan Geopark. The sand in the dunes is composed mainly of quartz, and the particles are small in size, ranging from 0.2 millimeters to 0.3 millimeters. This sand gets blown up by the wind and moves across the surface of the dune, creating a wave-like pattern. These sand ripples are called humon, and the local people of Tottori have an affinity with this word.
山陰海岸ジオパーク海と大地の自然館で学芸員をしています金山と言います。ここからは鳥取砂丘がどのようにしてできたのかをお話しさせていただきます。鳥取砂丘の南にあります中国山地には花崗岩や変成岩、それから火山岩などが分布しています。特に花崗岩が地表に露出すると、花崗岩はこのように白や黒の鉱物の集まりでできているんですけども、この鉱物がバラバラになって大量の砂を生み出します。その砂が川に流されて、そして海へと出ます。海に出た砂はさらに沿岸流によって流され、そして砂浜に打ち上がります。その砂はさらに日本海の季節風によって内陸に飛ばされて鳥取砂丘ができます。このような作用を長い年月の間繰り返し続くことで鳥取砂丘が大きくなってきました。鳥取砂丘を含む鳥取県東部と兵庫県北部、京都府北部にまたがるエリアは山陰海岸ユネスコ世界ジオパークに認定されています。ジオパークとはユネスコのプログラムの一つで、地球が途方もない年月をかけて作り出した地質学的遺産を地域の自然や文化とともに保護するとともに、教育や観光に活用することで地域のひいては地球全体の持続的な発展を目指しています。鳥取砂丘は現在進行形で変化する大地とそこで育まれる生態系、砂丘地という大地の特性を生かしたらっきょうの栽培などの人の営みを体感することができる山陰海岸ジオパークの重要な見どころの一つです。
The Tottori Sand Dunes were barren land that could not be used for agriculture because of the strong winds and the movement of the sand due to its location being on the coast. The sand drifting out of the dunes caused by the strong wind, which often buried the surrounding fields and roads, was troubling the people who lived in the area. People in dry lands of the world are planting trees suitable in each region to a forest and to cope with desertification. Similarly, people living in coastal sand dune areas of Japan have been planting windbreak trees to control the sand drifts. After many trials to select the best tree for sand dune afforestation, the only promising tree that managed to survive the dune environment was the Japanese black pine. Japanese black pine is a tree that can grow in nutrient-poor, sandy soil and is tolerant to salinity. In addition, since it is an evergreen tree, it can retain foliage even during the windy winter season.
The first step for afforestation in sand dunes is the installation of a sand depositing fence to catch the brown sand by the wind from the sea. Then, behind the fence, a square sand stabilizing fence is built on all sides to reduce the movement of brown sand, and then trees are planted inside the fence. The fence is made of bamboo. These are the Japanese black pine and Japanese silverberry. Japanese silverberry are planted as fertilizer trees to increase nutrients in the sand. It helps the growth success of pine trees.
The sand dune afforestation technology was established in the mid-20th century. After the World War II, sand dunes afforestation with the Japanese black pine was widely implemented all over Japan, including Tottori Sand Dunes. The erosion control forest of Japanese black pine was successful in controlling the sand movement, making the dunes into an arable area. Sand dune utilization for agriculture has been a long-standing challenge since the water drains quickly and nutrients are low in the sandy area. People used to try out sweet potatoes, wheat, and mulberry in those areas, but with low productivities. However, Japanese scallion, Japanese name rakkyo, Allium chinense, which was first brought to Tottori during the Edo period from 1603 to 1869, was a game changer. This crop, which looks like a smaller shallot usually eaten sweet vinegar pickled in Japan, grew pretty well on sandy fields, which made it into a very popular crop in sandy areas of Tottori. Then, the systematic cultivation of this Japanese scallion in Tottori started in the beginning of the 20th century and lasting for more than 100 years to date. Now, it is one of the most well-known special products of Tottori Prefecture.
乾燥地植物資源バンク室の留森です。鳥取砂丘は美味しいらっきょうの産地として有名です。鳥取の砂丘らっきょうが特産品になった要因についてお話しします。作物としてのらっきょうは野生地でも育ち、乾燥条件にも強いため無灌漑でも砂丘地に育ちます。またらっきょう栽培は砂丘地との相性が良く、砂丘畑でのらっきょう栽培には病害虫の発生が少ない、分球が早い、色が白い、歯切れが良い、冬にも葉が枯死せず飛散の防止に役立つといった長所があります。日本のらっきょう栽培には1年栽培型と2年栽培型があり、 鳥取砂丘では1年栽培を行っています。1年栽培は7月下旬から8月末に種球を植え付けて、翌年5月から6月に収穫します。鳥取砂丘の農家ではらっきょう栽培を砂丘交配地の水田稲作および傾斜地での梨栽培と組み合わせている場合が多く、これら3種作物の労働ピークが重ならないという点も都合が良かったと考えられます。無灌漑でも栽培可能ならっきょうですが、鳥取砂丘では生産量を増して農業生産を安定させるために灌漑設備の整備や大規模な農地造成を行いました。また研究機関ではらっきょうの生理学的研究や病害虫対策、省力化のための農業機械の開発など多くの研究開発を行ってきました。らっきょう栽培が導入されてから今日まで農家と産、官、学との総合的な協力により鳥取砂丘はらっきょうの一大産地になっています。
Since old times, attempts have been made to grow a variety of crops in the Tottori Sand Dunes, and among them, Japanese scallions have achieved great success as a special product. In the Tottori Sand Dunes, Japanese scallions are grown in sandy fields with high drainage and low nutrients. Nutrient-rich soils will produce caramel-colored bulbs, but sandy soils with little excess nutrients will yield beautiful white bulbs. When Japanese scallions are grown in the dune field, the leaf blades stop growing during the early growth stage process, making the core part of the scallions grow fuller. This makes each layer of cloves thinner, resulting in a delicate and crispy texture when eaten. These Japanese scallions cultivated on the sandy soil have been branded as Tottori Sakyu Raw Japanese Scallion and Fukube Sakyu Raw Japanese Scallion in recent years. Tottori Prefecture has the largest share of the national production of Japanese scallions. In Fukube Town, Tottori, located right on the edge of the Tottori Sand Dunes, Mr. Fukumoto is running a Japanese scallions farm.
福部町の橋本慎一郎と言います。らっきょうを作って、33年ですかね。はい、次の世代、そのらっきょうっていうのはその種で作るんではなくて、その球根を植えてそれを大きくするんですけども、その植える球根のをその選別するときにちょっとなるべく有用なものとか大きなものとかを使うということは心がけてますね。砂地ですからね、どうしても水がないとそう大きくなりませんので、その辺のことはうちもそうですけども、その福部地全体このブランドで維持していこうということで、灌水施設というものを設けてますね。はい、そうですね、このらっきょう自体はその植えてしまってある程度その地に植わってるもんですから、その自然災害とかっていうものは受けにくいんですけども、人の口に入るまでっていうんですかね、あれが人の手がかかりますので、いいものを作るのも当然ですけども、それをその掘り取って収穫してその消費者の方に届けるっていうふうなところまでに人の手がもう何人もかかってますんでね、その人の手を途切れさないようにっていうことは今でも気をつけてますけどもね。はい、
Although development of special agricultural machinery for cultivation of Japanese scallions is underway, the planting of them in the Tottori Sand Dunes is done entirely by hand. This planting work taking place in midsummer is very tough, since the surface temperature of the dunes can exceed 60 degrees Celsius, evaporating the row's soil moisture, adding humidity to the heat. The post-harvest process of Japanese scallions also takes many hands, since about 70% of the harvested Japanese scallions' leaves and roots are manually cleaned in traditional cutting methods and are put on the market as washed Japanese scallions. There have been attempts to mechanize this process as well, but no machine so far can perform the meticulous job involving bulb sorting at the quality of the job of human hands. Japanese scallions of Tottori, which boast the largest market share in Japan, are maintained by the delicate techniques of experienced workers. You can see that the production amount of Japanese scallions from Tottori is stably around 30% of the national total production. Also, the area planted is about 180 hectares, which is the largest in Japan. This is equivalent to about 0.05% of the total area of Tottori Prefecture. This brings Tottori Prefecture on top of the ranking of the proportion of the area planted with Japanese scallions to the total area of the prefecture. The Tottori Sand Dunes receive about 1,900 millimeters of annual precipitation, and different kinds of plants grow there because of the warm and humid climate. The sandy soil in the coastal dunes is low in nutrition and contains salinity, making it hard for plants to grow. In summer, the surface temperature of the sand dunes exceeds 60 degrees Celsius, and the ground surface dries up on sunny days. However, since the sand below the surface retains moisture, the real limiting factor for plant growth is, rather, sand movement by the wind. 20 species of dune plants adapted to sand movement and poor nutrient grow in the Tottori Sand Dunes, all of which are perennial and characterized by their deeper root zone.
Dune plants adopted to sand dunes by developing underground paths in this way. They have long underground stems and many roots that resist sand erosion. When these plants are buried in the sand, they produce new leaves from the underground paths. The dune plant communities hold the sand in place and create sand and vegetation hills.
In the rainy coastal sand dunes of Japan, strong winds and sand movement have a great impact on the biomass. In the 1950s, afforestation of the Tottori Sand Dunes using Japanese black pine took place to alleviate the negative impacts of sand movement and sand drift on the lives of the people. Damages from the sand were reduced, and agriculture in sand dunes became possible thanks to the success of the afforestation effort. This success also contributed to the changes in dune topography because of reduced sand movement due to windbreak effect of the pine trees. Moreover, the biomass in the dunes increased because the distraction from the sand movement was alleviated. In order to make the wind flow through the dunes, some of the surrounding black pine forests were cut down from the 1970s to the 1980s. However, the large number of seeds that remained in the logging areas germinated, and increased vegetation cover reached up to 40% of the dunes by 1990. Invaded by grass coverage, the landscape of the sand dunes was changed, and the sandy surface where humon and saren, sand curtains, can be seen reduced. In order to restore the landscape of the time when the Tottori Sand Dunes were accredited as a natural monument of Japan, and to protect the value of the dunes, a committee involving national and local governments and experts was formed. Removal of plants was started back in 1991, based on the advice of researchers of Tottori University. The removal only targets the excess grass coverage and invasive plants, and not the total removal of the plants, to maintain the landscape. Initially, the removal was carried out as a public project. However, since the 2000s, it has been carried out by several thousand volunteers. Since new types of invasive plants are found every year, systematic removal efforts in Tottori Sand Dunes are still ongoing. In addition to the well-known efforts on conservation and restoration of the landscape, the Tottori Sand Dunes are also famous as a tourist destination. In recent years, increased efforts are put on the public relations, making information on activities taking advantage of the dune topography, tours, local dining and shopping more accessible to visitors from all over the world.
山陰海岸国立公園鳥取砂丘ビジターセンターの中川樹奈です。鳥取砂丘観光の玄関口鳥取砂丘ビジターセンターでは鳥取砂丘に関するさまざまな情報を発信しています。砂丘内の旬な情報だけでなくビジターセンター館内の映像や標本を通してさまざまな学習に利用していただけます。また砂丘のアクティビティや周辺観光の情報もご案内しています。砂丘の歩き方、また旬な情報が気になった方は鳥取砂丘ビジターセンターへお立ち寄りください。続いてはビジターセンター展示室にあります砂蔵のご紹介をします。1年間砂丘の映像をドローンで空撮した映像が壁や床に投影される臨場感豊かなシアター映像となっています。1年を通じて夏から冬までの鳥取砂丘を体感することができます。ここはビジターセンターの展示の一つ、風紋発生風洞装置を使った学習体験コーナーです。鳥取砂丘で一番有名な砂にできる波模様、風紋がどのようにしてできていくのかを実際に実験を通して学習していただけます。いかがでしたでしょうか。鳥取砂丘ビジターセンターでは1年間を通じて他にも砂丘の企画展示や体験、ワークショップなどを開催しています。鳥取砂丘にお立ち寄りいただいた際にはぜひビジターセンターにも足を運んでみてください。
I'm Kristina Todoric from Uzbekistan. I'm a specially appointed professor of the International Platform for Dryland Research and Education. My first visit to Tottori Sand Dunes was back in 2010, and I went back there again in 2017. I was pretty amazed that each visit gave me fresh and different impressions. I would describe the Tottori Sand Dunes as picturesque, that from French means beautiful and attractive like a painting. Coming from landlocked country Uzbekistan, coastal sand dunes are something different and unique from what I am used to being around, and that difference definitely made me curious about its formation and ecosystem sustainability. What is also interesting is that I find the plant species and plant communities very much in common with Uzbekistan. For example, caris, which grows well in our country, is also distributed and all grows well here. In my country, landscape like sand dunes and deserts are not well preserved, since the local people don't always care about the nature. So they are more interested in exploiting the resources of those landscapes for some income. Or I saw that here in Tottori, people are gentle and more attentive to nature landscape around these environments. I really admire the efforts of local authorities and communities for taking such good care of symbolic place of Tottori, and I hope these efforts will continue for years to come. This is really unique in the world.
Out of all coastal sand dunes in Japan, most of them have been developed and only a few of them remain untouched, retaining the original form of the dunes. The Tottori Sand Dunes are appreciated not only because of its large scale, but also for its academic significance because the land process is uninterrupted and a healthy dune ecosystem is maintained. For those reasons, Tottori Sand Dunes are a popular study site of coastal ecosystems. Although there are no drylands in Japan, the challenges in drylands, such as aeolian dust and food security concerns, have impacts on lives in Japan as well. The Arid Land Research Center, ALRC, of Tottori University is dedicated to research towards solutions of those challenges facing dryland and the rest of the world using the Tottori Sand Dunes as an experimental field.
The Tottori Sand Dunes are the only large-scale sand dunes in Japan, and they are a model of sand dune ecosystem. For example, the establishment of alien plants in the Tottori Sand Dunes is considered to predict the future of sandy beaches in Japan. Therefore, it is important to report the case studies and disseminate information on the Tottori Sand Dunes. For example, this species is Fuayo, is native to North America and was first found in the Tottori Sand Dunes in 1985. The fact that it has not decreased in number in Tottori Sand Dunes despite annual weeding efforts provides a basis for evaluating the invasive potential of this species.
Hello, my name is Hassan Muhammad Abdel Baki. I'm from Egypt and work here at the Arid Land Research Center of Tottori University as a project researcher. As you may know that Egypt is a dry land country with an average annual precipitation of roughly 50 millimeters, whereas the average annual precipitation in Tottori is over 1,800 millimeters. Egypt and Tottori are related since the desert occupies or covers more than 90% of Egypt's land. And this center is located within Tottori Sand Dune area. The soil is sand and therefore the drought is quickly occurred. As a result, irrigation is essential when there is a lack of rain. In Egypt, irrigation is mandatory, required at all times. My research focuses on developing and evaluating new innovative irrigation schemes to optimize irrigation supply that maximize farmers' net income. Using the combinations of numerical simulations, weather forecast, and water price. This can control farmer behavior toward irrigation amount or irrigation water supply and conserve irrigation resources. I also consider the response of the plant to drought and salinity stresses to determine irrigation depths, which is irrigation requirement. Thank you very much.
What would be the future direction of the Tottori Sand Dunes?
My name is Shigenori Karasawa from Tottori University. I am studying on animal diversity. It looks like there is no animals in the Tottori Sand Dunes, but in fact, a wide variety of animal species live here. Some of them can only live in highly natural sandy areas. Since such environment is currently destroyed by human activities, we can say that the Tottori Sand Dunes are valuable habitat for the animals. On the other hand, the Tottori Sand Dunes are famous sightseeing spot, so many tourists visit here. In other words, the Tottori Sand Dunes are expected to function in two ways: as a tourist attractions and as a valuable habitat for animals. Balancing these two functions is a difficult task, but to achieve this goal, I have been studying the species diversity, population dynamics, and their distributions. For example, a species of tiger beetles that live only in a small part of the sand dunes are threatened with extinction after surge of population tourists in 2017. After that, subsequent conservation measures had led to an increase in the population in recent years. In this way, we aim to achieve a balance between tourist use and natural conservation by continuously collecting scientific data and formulating appropriate protection measures.
The Tottori Sand Dunes are a symbol of the region and a representative example of the diversity of nature in Japan. It is necessary to maintain the dunes alive by encouraging the movement of sand and also maintain an outstanding landscape through vegetation management. This will make people in Tottori be proud of the sand dunes and contribute to the promotion of tourism. At the same time, it is also important to promote biodiversity conservation by controlling human impact, such as trampling and weeding. We would like to pursue a better relationship between the dunes and humans and build an advanced example of wise use in Japan.
The Tottori Sand Dunes have been changing their shape and increasing their value through interactions with people. With their beautiful landscape and contribution to dryland research over many years, the Tottori Sand Dunes will continue to be of importance as a heritage of the world.